cool.
We have the quarterback of the Kansas State Wildcats, Big 12 champion Will Howard.
So excited to announce Kansas City Sports Network's new soccer channel. They're taking advantage of a look that they utilized earlier in the game to show the jet sweep motion.
It's a live edition of the KC Laboratory presented by Emprise.
You kind of root for guys to have those moments, and that was certainly a big moment.
Welcome into Mizzou, That's Who, your podcast for Missouri Athletics here on KC Sports Network.
Welcome, everybody, to the Border War Podcast.
Welcome back. Another episode of Ain't No Season Podcast.
You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
It's a live edition of the KC Laboratory presented by Emprise Bank. Member FDIC. Sorry. Craig literally...
Collect yourself.
He was literally...
The man lets his hair go an extra 4 days, and now he can't even get himself back on track.
I don't know what's wrong with the man.
Craig, I was doing the math. It's been 39 days since my last haircut.
Whoa. How are you like functioning?
Listen,
like
look, he's got the Hawaiian shirt on. It's unbuttoned, an extra button. Like things are getting wild over there with the 4 extra days.
Listen, is it the hair that's right here in the V, Kent? Do they trim that as well? Is that why you're letting it breathe?
That needs, I don't know. It's vibes today. We're vibing. It's the summertime. We're having a good time. I was feeling it. Hair's heavy today, because it's been a few extra days, so I'm weared down a little bit. I'm getting tired, but thanks to everybody that's hanging out with us. Appreciate y'all. We're it's peak summer here. We're gonna talk about plenty of things, I'm sure, today. But thank you. Please feel free to hit that like button, subscribe button. Please feel free to leave a 5-star review if you like this channel. Also, just a heads up, you can donate to the KCSN Golf. Our KCSN Foundation Golf Tournament. There are raffles that you can enter into even if you aren't attending the golf tournament. There's some great prizes that you have the ability to get if you would so like to. There's a link in the description of this show where you can donate. But we appreciate everybody that has signed up for the golf tournament. Everybody that is has donated so far really means a lot. Maddie Lane, hi.
Hello. I'm so ready for this July 10th live show with a lot of stuff to talk about. Craig, you?
Yeah, I'm actually just beside myself here. It was great.
Sophia says I look like a character in the White Lotus. Hopefully not the one that dies.
Well,
never seen an episode of White Lotus. Don't know what it is.
It's okay. You're not cultured.
Am I missing out?
Yes. Yeah. It's a good show. It's a quality show. Very quality show. But so I want to start off with this, and obviously it feels a little bit belabored at this point with a lot of the DeAndre Hopkins talk, but I actually had a lot of takes from some of the stuff that kind of came out today. So if you haven't kind of followed up, DeAndre Hopkins, despite 2 offers from the Titans and Patriots, is waiting out teams, waiting to see if other teams can get involved in kind of drive up his value. That's kind of the report that we've seen to this point. This is from Mike Rice. Just real quick, key points on where things stand with free agent wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, according to sources close to the situation, are as follows. The Tennessee Titans and Patriots have made an offer. The Titans have been more aggressive to this point, and Hopkins hasn't been in a rush to sign. One reason for Hopkins to wait a bit longer is to leave open the possibility of another team entering the mix, potentially increasing the market. All right, so it's so weird because DeAndre Hopkins didn't have an agent earlier in the year. I think that's known by this. He didn't really have agency at this early in the year. Hired one to kind of help negotiate this stuff. There was a point where he was kind of negotiating his own stuff. Hired an agent. Since then, it's been a lot of agents speak. And I don't know. Things don't add up entirely with this statement for me, because I look at he's got 2 good offers, right? He's got these great offers, but he's just waiting to see if he can squeeze a little bit of more money out of some teams. And I I don't know if I don't think he's waiting on the Chiefs to begin negotiating, because I think they can start having some level of conversation at this point. Or is he waiting out for them to just sign him? I don't know. Like, some things just don't add up entirely for me here. I don't know if you have any level, Maddie, of thought about this, but I have plenty of thoughts.
Look, my thoughts on DeAndre Hopkins are the same now as what they've been. I think Craig and I may have happened to have answered this on 21 questions the last 8 times that we've done 21 questions together. So I feel like I've done a lot of DeAndre Hopkins talk here. It's the same thing. The longer this goes, the more confident I feel the Chiefs or the Bills would sign DeAndre Hopkins. I feel like he's fishing greatly for the Bills or the Chiefs to offer him the same amount of money that the Titans or the Patriots are willing to offer him. I think it's that simple. I think that's where we're at. I think he wants to compete, but the problem is he's looking around and seeing what a bunch of other veteran wide receivers that he thinks he's better than have gotten paid. And he says, well, no, I'm not going to take significantly less than that, but I still want to go to be on a contender. So I think he's kind of playing this game of chicken right now where he wants to play for a contender and he wants a certain level of cash. He's not getting that. He's not getting the cash he wants from a contender, and the teams that are giving him the cash he wants obviously will not be very good. And it's just a matter of where is he going to give? What's he going to give on? Is he going to give on his asking price, or is he going to give on the fact that he wants to compete for a championship? This is where we've been for 4 months now. Nothing's changed. This is the exact same spot that we've been in. So that's all I got for it.
I think the only thing that's realistically changed here is that he actually went and took visits. We now know that there are offers on the table from the Titans and from the Patriots. So we know that there's money on the table there. So if he was just looking for a home, he's got one. I'm also guessing that those two teams probably put a little bit of extra money in front of him. I'm not guessing that he's flying to Tennessee to go, meet with Mike Vrabel, meet with that offense in the hopes that, okay, well, maybe they're going to offer a contract that I'm going to like here. That's something that they definitely arranged beforehand. His agent wanted him to go and take those meetings, wanted him to go and be at those two places because obviously the money is good enough for him to get there on the table, which kind of leads to the rest of this, more going towards the contender. Those are driving the cost up. If he's got contracts on the table, he and his agents get to turn around and say, listen, Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, maybe, I don't know. They're doing crazy stuff with wide receivers this year. So any one of you teams, you've got to come up to this level. This is what I have on the table. I'm willing to play for these teams, but it's here. I would rather play for you, but you got to hit this level right here. And as it stands right now, none of the teams, none of the leagues are balking at that number. The Chiefs are certainly not in a hurry. If they were in a hurry, they'd get Chris Jones done tomorrow. But they're not going to speed up that timeline any more than they need to get a worse deal for them, for Chris Jones, to try and make this happen. So I think he's just sitting there and just waiting for camp to happen, somebody to either get more desperate and put more money on the table, or one of these teams to sort out their cap situation enough to where he feels like he can sign with a contender.
All right. So do either of you know off the top of your head how much cap space the Tennessee Titans have currently?
Ooh, I do not.
Okay.
8.6.
Yeah, close. Like real close.
Oh,
So
really?
good.
Yeah. Cap expert Maddie Lane.
Direct all of your salary cap questions to Maddie Lane. It's his favorite part of the offseason.
Yeah, do it on my threads. Find me on threads and do it there, please.
$8.3 million in cap space. So let's just, if the reports are true that the Tennessee Titans have the best offer currently for the services of DeAndre Hopkins, we can make some assumptions. We can say it's a 1-year deal that's probably not particularly great. It's a 1-year deal that is of the structure of Odell Beckham Jr.
Meaning lots of void years at the end. That's what Ken's meaning.
Yeah.
Right
Oh,
there.
yeah. Sorry. I probably should play. They added 4 void years and spread a $10 million signing bonus across 4 years to help facilitate that. Or it's a multi-year deal for DeAndre Hopkins for the Tennessee Titans. I was looking at their cap I don't think there's a ton of great places for them to move a ton of money right now. Like, it didn't seem like there's a bunch of guys that they're really trying to restructure right now. And they're in a rebuild. I don't know. Well, maybe they're not. I don't know why they tried to sign DeAndre Hopkins if they were. They're in a weird, they're not good. They're just not good. That's what it is. So you look at that, you can kind of make those maybe some deductive reasoning there. Maybe the deals aren't particularly strong for him right now. Which I think is benefiting the Chiefs too, or the Bills. I don't know what if he holds out beyond the Chris Jones extension. I feel very intrigued by the idea that he could be a Chief. And I've maintained this. The longer it draws out, higher probability things go up of him eventually signing with the Chiefs. But man, I don't know. Like, it doesn't seem like things are totally adding up for me. Like, even just the timing of news. There's like, a new team needs to get introduced, so it drives the value up on maybe the Titans and the Patriots. Maybe he's trying to get good money from the Titans and the Patriots to come back to the Chiefs and say, see, here's the deal, or the Bills, or whoever it is. You know, it maybe behooves him to wait until the Chiefs get involved. But if there was a contract worth signing for him right now, I don't know. And if a contender was really trying to be aggressive beyond the Chiefs, I don't think they would be waiting for the Chiefs situation to be done. And that's the thing I'm paying attention to. If the Bills were really intent on getting something done with Nuke Hopkins, why haven't they yet? Why are they waiting the Chiefs out? And that's why it kind of comes back to me wondering, is Nuke Hopkins waiting the Chiefs out? That's kind of what it feels like, not saying it's a lock that he's a Chief or he will be a Chief or anything like that. It just, when I look at timing and why all these teams are desperate to try to chase the Chiefs, all these teams are, these are two AFC teams that have already put offers on the table. Like, yeah, you got two AFC teams with offers on the table. We know the Bills have been floated as a potential name. All these teams are desperate to try to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and they're not being aggressive in trying to get something done before the Chiefs can clear some cap space. Like, the Chiefs have to be in some kind of consideration somewhere in this process, it feels like. And maybe it's leverage, maybe that's all it is, but the Chiefs are being accounted for in some capacity with this DeAndre Hopkins situation.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear that DeAndre Hopkins is at least interested in playing with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. I don't think that's a particularly big secret. That's something that is on his mind. I think the same can be said for him with the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, right? So it's also July. You're not going to get teams in a bidding war in July. That's just simply really not going to happen. Best case scenario for him, for like getting paid more money, is you go to training camp, someone gets hurt, and then a team gets desperate. But good teams aren't going to have a surplus of money sitting around once training camp starts. Good teams spend their money. Good teams don't go into the year with a lot of extra cap space because you need to use that money to be good. So I get the point of maybe waiting this out a little bit, but at the same time, like, the longer he waits, even if he wants to go to a good team and is, maybe going to get an injury, you're running out of time and or money and or teams that are going to be good that have that cap space. So I don't know. I feel like he's losing leverage. I think he's kind of waited a little bit too far into this now. And now it's either, like I said, he's going to have to settle hard for getting paid more money, which it sounds like he's got offers on the table that he's reasonably okay with, or he's going to have to settle for way less money for a team that might contend. The problem is, if you keep waiting any longer, these teams that might contend are going to go solve that answer somewhere else. They're going to go find that answer with somebody not named DeAndre Hopkins. They're going to get into training camp and be like, fine, we're going to run with what we have, and we don't want to teach you or let you get caught up to speed if you're going to keep dragging your feet. I can't promise the Chiefs aren't at that point already. That's a team that doesn't like to go into the season with questions. I don't think they're going to sit around and just keep waiting forever.
Or they all feel good about where they're at with that conversation. And that's why, that's where I look at, like, all of what you just said is maybe they feel good about the conversation that they're having there. And that's because they can talk to DeAndre Hopkins this whole time. They could be talking to DeAndre Hopkins this whole time. There's nothing keeping them, even though they don't have the cap space. They just can't execute. And that's where I just reading between the lines, I think there's a path to it making a lot of sense that he's having these conversations in some capacity with the Chiefs. Not that he will necessarily 100% sign, but like, I think you can forge it's not even forge. I think you can see the path to how the Chiefs are involved in some capacity in this conversation. We're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
Thanks, everyone, hanging out. Please feel free to leave a 5-star review. Helps us grow the channel. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Donate to the KCSN Foundation Golf Tournament. Enter in to win some raffle prizes. I think we have some Nick Bolton memorabilia, Travis Kelce memorabilia. There's a holiday package, gift KCSN holiday package. There's all kinds of great stuff. So there's a link in the description. It's like a week and a half away, or 2.5 weeks away. We're getting really, really close to the golf tournament. All the raffle announcements will happen at the golf tournament, but obviously you don't have to be present to get there. You can enter the raffle, and that'll be all good there. So, okay, so we're getting really close to training camp. Oh, by the way, during the KCSN golf tournament, there are also like training camp will have started already too. We want to start kind of talking about that a little bit because it's worth talking about. Some offensive camp battles that we're kind of maybe looking forward to looking at, and some players and stuff that, we're all kind of excited to watch. So, Maddie, you have the floor, my friend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wasn't ready for this.
Yeah, I know you weren't.
Okay.
Yeah,
I would like to see the running back battle for running back 3 between Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Deneric Prince. I think a lot of people thought Clyde was going to be traded at some point in time this offseason, or that the Chiefs were going to move on from him at some point to create more space, to open things up for one of the young guys. And there's been a lot of hype about Prince throughout this offseason, throughout the whole process leading up to it. And it's easy to see why. So now you go into camp, and training camp isn't necessarily the best place for a running back to show out, but you can start to see who has an idea of the offense, how they foresee some of these guys being used in the passing game. And I just generally want to see where these reps are coming from for Prince. Is he eating into some of these reps with the second team? Is he getting some first team work? And how does that compare to Clyde? I think we all know Pacheco is going to be a starter. As long as Jerick McKinnon is healthy, he is going to be one of your primary, if not your primary, third down back. How does it kind of flush out behind him? So yeah, I'm a little excited for that, because I'm excited for Deneric Prince just like everybody else, but we can't forget that Clyde Edwards-Helaire has always been a quality, productive overall running back. He belongs in the NFL on a roster, despite what, the hate he gets from some fans. He belongs on a roster. So like Prince has to beat him out.
Yeah. I think everybody's so quick to move on from Clyde, which if the Chiefs decided, hey, listen, last year at the deal, we didn't pick up the option. Somebody wants to offer a decent pick for him. We'll take it. I can see an avenue towards them trading Clyde Edwards-Helaire for a good enough pick. I mean,
nothing's keeping them from trading him still, potentially. Absolutely. I'm not advocating or saying it's going to happen, but it's still in the realm of possibility for sure.
But that remains the thing, that when healthy, Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been RB1 for this team, has been the first choice guy every single year since he's been drafted. Now, you can tell, you look at the rest of the running back rooms behind him and just be like, yeah, of course he was. But he was, and he has gotten plenty of reps. I think we all remember games where Clyde was good. I think that people just get very hung up on the fact that he was a round 1 running back that isn't utilized in the pass game like we all kind of hoped that he was going to be, and has lost some of that burst and athleticism with injuries. Remains to be seen. Is he going to recapture some of that? Because if he does, once again, he could be a guy that was on pace for 1,300 yards in his rookie year. That was still an extremely positive year for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm not saying that that's automatically going to happen, but I think we are very rapidly moving to the point where we're all very much underestimating what Clyde Edwards-Helaire can do in this offense, just because everybody's so ready to move on in that running back room.
Yeah, I don't think any of the conversation on this show was ever about Clyde Edwards-Helaire being cut, ever. If you can find it, I don't think that's ever been our stance or conversation. He seemed to possibly be a trade chip on the last year of his contract. Here's the funny thing. Clyde Edwards-Helaire his rookie year, played 13 games, 803 rushing yards, 297 yards catching. Averaged 4.4 yards per carry. Last year, he averaged 4.3 yards per carry. He set a record in yards per reception and receiving touchdowns last year. He averaged 4.3 yards per carry. Like this, he's not too far removed. And in some capacity, he had a career year as a pass catcher last year. He had a average at his standard year on the ground last year, and he was the starter heading into the season. Like, it's a trade asset more than it is a cut candidate. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is firmly in the mix, but I'll tell you what, I think he's involved in the offense. I could see him still being traded if they don't. But also, guess what? I think Deneric Prince's make this roster anyway. I think they're keeping 4. Like, I know, like, there's gonna be, I think there's a battle for for opportunity, but this team has liked to keep running back inventory. And if you look at the running back room, I don't blame them for grabbing 4, because you got Isaiah Pacheco, who just is coming off a couple injuries, and he runs like he has no regard for his body. I mean, every run looks like Taker throwing Mick Foley off Hell in a Cell. Like, he just has no regard for his body. Jerick McKinnon, his injury report reads head, shoulders, knees, and toes. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire hasn't been able to complete the last 2 seasons. So there's a lot of guys that have injury issues, and this team has shown a propensity to try to keep inventory in the running back room recently. I think there's a decent chance all 4 of them wind up making this roster. I don't know. Any pushback on that, Matthew?
No, I don't think so. The problem is not problem, but I think one of them will obviously not be dressed for game day if you have all 4 of them. Like, that's kind of like what I'm trying to get a general idea on when I'm going into camp. And this is a pretty good question. Since we're talking about Clyde, I wanted to go ahead and answer it here from Sophia. And, good friend, Nate Tice says that he doesn't think that the Chiefs running scheme is necessarily ideal for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and just was wondering if we would, elaborate on that. And I think for me, I think a lot of it just comes from how much kind of zone the Chiefs have run. And the fact that when you go back and find when Clyde was at his best, which has come at LSU, it was his ability to duck in and out of double teams from that LSU offensive line. He was able to use his short area agility, his ability, quick decision-making, good enough vision to where he could duck in and out behind these double teams, kind of get up into the hole quickly, press on the back of his blockers before having to make that final cut and then go somewhere. So and you go back and look, some of his best runs for the Chiefs do come on these gap kind of runs, do come when he is able to tuck himself in behind some of these double team blocks or get behind his offensive linemen, rather than patiently pressing the hole like you have to, or the line of scrimmage like you have to in zone coverage, reading out the entire defense, and then making a lot of hard cuts from essentially a standstill position or a very slow pace comparatively across the formation. I think he struggles a lot more with the zone stuff. And while the Chiefs have gone to more power run scheme stuff lately, they started to incorporate more. That's not the basis of their run game. They mix it in. And I just don't think that's where Clyde has necessarily excelled, as a team that is going to base most of what they do out of zone.
And I think a lot of the translation that we looked at with Clyde was centered around the inside zone stuff, because everything he did between the tackles, his inside zone runs at LSU were pretty good, but he was just phenomenal on duo runs between the tackles. So you were looking at that and you were hoping that sort of would translate to an inside zone scheme. But then you look at all the outside zone stuff that Andy Reid wants to run, loves to run. That's not him at all. And frankly, it's not Pacheco either. I mean, it's not either one of those guys. That's more of a Jet McKinnon. That's more of a, maybe even a Deneric Prince, but it was certainly
for Pacheco. Yeah. It does work though, because when he does hit it right, it matters, because of how hard he hits the hole, right? But when Clyde hits an outside zone hole correctly, it doesn't have the same pop, right? So it's inconsistent. And then when he does hit it, it doesn't equate to anything. At least Pacheco, it might still be inconsistent, but when he hits it, it matters.
Fair. Yes.
Sorry.
I'm glad you said that. But I think look back at what the Chiefs run scheme was with Damian Williams for the longest time under Andy Reid. It was just constantly, hey, we're going to keep trying to hit this outside zone over and over and over. And he may be at 1.7 yards per carry, but he's going to break that one for 80 yards. and boost all of that up. That Andy Reid was more than comfortable setting up the pass with the run game, setting up play action stuff, and just more than happy to keep running the ball in those outside zone looks, even without success. And that's still what he wants to do because it fits so nicely with a lot of the West Coast concepts, a lot of the vertical ability there. If you are forcing the safeties, if you are forcing everybody to cover so deep vertically, and I mean, it's something that every coach is trying to do here, all these good offensive minds, you're trying to force them to cover every blade of grass. And if you're forcing everybody to cover deep, cover vertical, and you are stretching them horizontal, that is impossible for a defense to do if you've got competent players that can do both of that. So I can understand Nate looking at this from a schematic standpoint, saying Andy wants to get vertical, Andy wants to have this horizontal element. Clyde doesn't really offer that in the same way that you would hope that he would fitting into this offense.
One thing I've been kind of thinking about with the running back room a little bit is, and it's kind of weird because they took Clyde, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think about the weight, speed, power running backs that maybe don't have great vision keep finding success in Kansas City. Damian Williams, Isaiah Pacheco, and now what do? They go grab a weight, speed, power, maybe not the great vision running back in undrafted free agency. Like, I feel like it's worked really well on some of their outside zone stuff. Like, that's really where they've had a lot of success. It's just, it is interesting. Like, you know, they still lean on that a little bit, and they found big physical backs that run with their hair on fire. And that's been kind of the model for them. So Clyde doesn't fit that prototype either of what they've typically found success with in recent memory either. So I don't know.
Quickly for reference, Clyde in college ran 223 zone runs according to Pro Football Focus and 144 gap runs. So like that's his entire college career. You're looking at over half were gap scheme runs. And you look at with the Chiefs, it's 284 zone to 111 gaps. Like it's a much bigger gap there, much bigger variety. No pun intended there, Kent. And if you even look throughout his career with the Chiefs, the difference from zone to gap runs has actually gotten closer and closer each and every season going into this last year where it was 40 to 30 essentially. So it's just the Chiefs have seemed to realize where he's better. And it also goes to showcase, you know, their shifting of their run game. But I think it matters. It matters for him and for them, the type of runs he has. Also, I would be amiss. We're talking about Clyde. He hasn't been the same since his hip injury. Like the guy was never the most athletic running back in the world, but you could tell watching him at LSU or even pre-hip injury in the NFL to now, I think he lost a little bit from that hip injury his rookie year. And I think that matters as well.
It does. It does. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, we're going to take a break.
I was just going to follow up with all the things we said there, kind of derisive towards Clyde, and yet still incredibly functional within the Chiefs offense. They find ways to make that work. So yes, we can sit here, we can talk about the way that he doesn't fit. And I don't disagree with what Nate's saying there. And yet Andy Reid will figure out a way to maximize him, make him a really good player within this scheme.
Yeah. Best years in the passing game he's had from a, per target, perspective, and 3 touchdowns, put the ball in the end zone 3 times. All right. Now we can take a break and be back.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
After this.
I love it.
That's your best joke in a long time.
It was.
Yeah,
it was.
yeah.
Hey, more of that, less of the other BS that you do.
Please.
Nick didn't even let me get into a joke on the transition. He's just like, nah, we're good. We're going to cut it off.
We may have paid him to do that.
I could see that now. I can kind of get that. It's okay. I want to talk a little bit about the receiving room here. There's some talented dudes. There's, some fan favorites in the receiver room. There's some potential value signings. I think, when I'm looking at the Justin Rosses and the Richie James of the world, I feel like those are the 2 big names that, I mean, if we're being honest, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, locks. Rashee Rice, lock. Justin Watson, pretty locky. I mean, I think we've talked about this too. I think Justin Watson is a lock, even if he's not seeing the field offensively as much, because he is a high-level special teams player, a core special teams player. His role might pivot a little bit more because, and this is where the conversation gets interesting, Justin Ross, Richie James, or both. The competition in the bottom for 6 receivers, 7 receivers, like those two, Justin Ross and Richie James, I feel like are the 2 guys that are really fighting for an opportunity there.
Yeah, and I mean, at this point, I also don't think that you could rule out an Amir Smith-Marset or Nico Remigio just for a return role, right? Like we're talking about we're looking at this, I guess the Richie James spot more likely, but even Justin Ross as well. One of those guys is probably going to be another returner and a special teams player. So if Smith-Marset or Nico are willing to take on that challenge and just be that guy, that also puts them into contention, even if they might not be as good of a wide receiver as a Richie James or Justin Ross. So yeah, the entire wide receiver room is going to be interesting. I do think that I agree with you that Justin Watson is pretty close to a lock. Just not that he got enough guaranteed money that they can't cut him, but he got enough guaranteed money that they wanted him. I think that's more of the reason. Like you can cut him, yes, but there was probably no reason to pay him that much money unless you really wanted him around and wanted to make sure they got him. So I feel like he's pretty close as well. And then, yeah, I mean, do the Chiefs keep 6 wide receivers? Do they keep 7? They haven't really done 7 before, and 7 seems like the only real path to get, fan favorite Justin Ross on the team while still adding enough bodies to fulfill Dave Toub's special teams requirements. Like how are they going to play this out?
I mean, I want to make sure that we all know Richie James has a ton of NFL returning experience. He has 75 punt returns in 4 years and 47 kick returns. That man is a punt returner, kick returner. Like he is. He has a lot of experience doing that. If you wanted to tell me that this team looked at this wide receiver room and said, we're not having KT take any more abuse on his body at punt returns, even though he was good at them, I think we all remember, we don't know that we trust Sky Moore to do that. We want him to focus on being a wide receiver. And we were kind of forced to put Justin Watson back there and just basically have him fair catch, more or less, for much of the back half of the season. You want to tell me that all of a sudden they went out and they targeted Richie James and they're just saying, hey, listen, whatever you bring to the table as a wide receiver, fine, whatever. You're going to be our primary punt returner, kick returner. That is your real role within this team. Now, the fact that they had him on the roster and the fact that they had him in camp, in mini camps, working with Patrick Mahomes, and then went out and made sure to add a John Ross, made sure to add a Justin Watson, made sure to add some of these other veteran wide receivers, doesn't make me think that he's just like a lock for a returner by any means here. But he certainly has the experience, and it might give him that leg up that we talk about all the time. The bottom of that wide receiver room is such heavy special teams influence. I know it's Dave Toub, he gets what he wants. At that point, wide receiver 7, you are so infrequently getting any sort of actual wide receiver production out of that role. It better be a guy that can contribute on special teams.
No kick returns for Richie James last year. Did have 24 punt returns. Only had 6 punt returns his last year in San Francisco. Sky Moore had about 14 punt returns last year, so a little bit of a heavier workload from a return game perspective than Sky Moore. All right, see, Maddie, you did say something interesting. You think 7 receivers is the only path for Justin Ross to make this team?
Yeah, I mean, I do, because to the point here, you're going to have some special teams plays. Kadarius Toney is maybe going to return some punts, but that's about it. MVS isn't playing special teams. Sky Moore only returned punts. And I mean, whether he's doing that again or not, he's only going to be a returner, right? There's nothing else there. And Rashee Rice, maybe they'll work him in as a special teams player, like a gunner or a vice or something. But like you have 3 to 4 wide receivers that aren't playing special teams at all. So you got to look at, Justin Watson's probably getting on there for just purely special teams. Mm-hmm. Richie James, we talked about the returning. he played over 100, like special team snaps, not including returns, but both years with San Francisco before playing 60 and then a little over 60 again with the Giants this last year. Like he's played on special teams, not as a returner. That gives him another boost to be out there. Justin Ross isn't playing special teams. The guy's got a fused neck. It doesn't mean to be a bad thing. He's got a fused neck. Are you going to trust him to run down the field and tackle somebody at full speed? So how do you find a spot for Justin Ross when your top 4 wide receivers aren't playing special teams? And then Justin Ross isn't? You're going to have one wide receiver that gives you special team snaps? That just doesn't seem to make sense to me.
That's why you keep 4 tight ends.
I mean, it is why you keep 4 tight ends. Those guys are going
to
play.
They don't have a fullback either, though.
That's true. What are you talking about? We talked about him already. Jerick McKinnon. He played it in the Super Bowl. Everybody don't take that seriously.
I will say, man made some big plays blocking.
Sure.
In the Super Bowl. But, he's not a fullback. Look, they need to protect. They need to put him in bubble wrap until like
December, January. Yeah, I'm fine with that. And I really like the way all these guys that we're talking about. I like the blend of sizes that they have on that roster. I think we all look at like Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, a little bit smaller guys there. You've got Rashee Rice, who's a little bit bigger guy, NVS, who's a little bit bigger guy, Justin Rutz, who's a significantly bigger guy, and then Justin Watson, Richie James. These guys are all guys that can line up and do a lot of stuff for this offense. So I don't know that it's a bad choice. If you wanted to tell me that Justin Watson is going to line up and play a lot of slot reps for this team, and he's going to play a lot of special teams, you're going to get great blocking out of the slot still. Like that's what's going to happen. MVS is going to block his ass off on the outside. And so is Rashee Rice. The man kind of loves to block. That's a good group to line up and still be able to throw some of these bubble screens, still be able to run some of the outside zone stuff that we've been talking about. It's a good group. So I don't know that I look at the bottom of this roster. I'm very curious to see how it works out in training camp, but I don't know that I look at the bottom of this roster and I say unequivocally that if Justin Watson is on this roster, I'm upset. Because I don't know that I am. With the current construction of the room, I would completely understand all of it. I see how he contributes. Again, maybe not always as a wide receiver, but in the other facets of the game that make a lot of sense for what Andy Reid, Matt Nagy, Patrick Mahomes want to do with their offense there. It makes a ton of sense. So I'm on board. I want Justin Ross on this roster. I'm also not going to be just beside myself if he gets passed over for some other guys that can do some of these other things.
I like Justin Ross for the record. It always is interesting to me how like we look at, like we spend all summer talking about Justin Ross, right? Twitter is blowing up about Justin Ross. Not to be fair, he hurt his foot. But it is funny to me, like we get all excited about Justin Ross, but you have to find a path for it for the math to work. And so it's like you're right. You can't be like, oh, I'm really excited to see Richie James and Justin Ross. It may not be both. Like it's going to take a lot of finagling to make it work for both to be on this roster, or injuries. Like, there's always, that the injuries could come into play at some point, right? Like there could be that as well. But it's hard. It is hard to find space for all these guys. They've built inventory at the receiver position. They've built inventory at the tackle position. Well, depending on what you classify as a tackle. Because it's kind of a lot of guys that, like the conversation about Darian Kennard. Where is he? Lucas Niang, is he a right tackle only sub? Like the backup offensive line, like we all know that the front offensive line is set. The competition for the back, for the second string offensive line, I don't know where it could go, because it kind of just seems like a collection of talent with a lot of really quality tackles that can kick inside, or maybe can kick inside. We don't know yet. It's wild. I see very tackle heavy roster construction, and you're probably guessing a couple of these guys can and will be playing along the interior at some point.
I mean, I guess I wouldn't. I don't know if there's the same collection of talent at the tackle position as I would say that there is the wide receiver position. I feel like the wide receiver. Yeah,
don't give me. Yeah, I'm not like okay.
Right. I feel a lot less confident that the Chiefs are going to have to leave what could be a quality offensive tackle off of the roster.
Well, let me maybe I should clarify a little bit. I look at this roster and I see guys, because like you're right. Like I have my questions about a lot of these guys. I look at Darian Kennard, Lucas Niang, Prince Tiga Winogo, 3 guys that they have kept around in some cases for multiple years. And it just, along with, oh, by the way, they signed Wanye Morris and Donovan Smith. And Jawan Taylor. But, like, it just feels like there's just a logjam of guys that they've been willing to keep around in years prior. And that's what's interesting to me.
Pretty confident that Kennard is an interior offensive lineman for the Chiefs. Like, I feel pretty good about that one. The others, for sure that I think Wanye Morris and Lucas Niang and Prince Tiga Winogo are all offensive tackles. Like, that's your offensive tackle depth. I just don't know exactly what they're competing for, I guess. Like, I think they're kind of set in stone there. Like, I don't know if there's a lot of competition to go around. Like, maybe Wanye Morris and Lucas Niang are battling it out to see who is the third offensive tackle, the swing tackle, and maybe they'll both play on both sides. Or Lucas Niang might be your right tackle and Wanye Morris might just be your left. And it might just be that simple. It might just be as simple as those are your backups directly at those positions. Maybe they move guys around if there's a long-term injury. I'm intrigued to see what the offensive tackle room looks like. I just don't know if there's a position battle in the offensive tackle room that I'm overly interested in, because I think it's pretty clear cut. I
agree with the majority of that there. The interior is what it is. Like Nick Allegretti's here, Darian Kennard's here, Austin Ryder's here. I think those guys are pretty much roster locks at this point.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, so this is where I don't know if Austin Ryder is a lock. Austin Ryder wasn't a lock last year. Austin Ryder wasn't on the roster last year.
Sure. But they had a backup center that they trusted.
But this is okay. So I'm gonna give you 4 names. Okay, I'm gonna give you 4 names: Wanye Morris, Nick Allegretti, Darian Kennard, Lucas Niang. Mm-hmm. If those are your backup offensive linemen, how do you feel about just your flexibility and your ability to mix and match if a couple injuries go? Like that's what's kind of interesting to me is like, okay, Darian Kennard's only been playing guard for a year at most. Lucas Niang, Wanye Morris is a rookie left tackle potentially, and Nick Allegretti's like clear cut your best backup lineman right now. I think at least along the interior. It just doesn't feel like the typical Andy Reid offensive line room if those are your 4. Like, how do you feel, Craig, if that's your 4?
I feel fine. Like, I really do feel fine. I do think that this offensive line, with Jawan Taylor playing at right tackle, is going to be really strong at 4 positions. Like, really strong at 4 positions. Now you've got guys that are out there that can back him up. Lucas Niang is a backup right tackle. Sounds great. Like, I'm on board with that. Nick Allegretti is a backup interior offensive lineman. I love that. I really do. And Darian Kennard, see what you got for another year. I'm fine with taking that swing. Prince Tiga Winogo, we'll see. And then you got Wanye Morris over there at the left tackle. I love all of that. Like, that all makes sense to me within Andy's structure here. It really does. So I'm fine with that group as it stands. But there's just some contention over what's the future. Where is that developing? Who's going to be there? What moves are they going to make after this? Have they insulated themselves well enough? It's future problems that we're discussing here a little bit, but it is something that I feel like from a depth perspective, I don't know if there's a ton of battles there other than maybe how they shift between OT3 and OT4. I don't know that maybe OT5, OT6 is going to catapult into this. I mean, like, Chukwuebuka Godric is not going to be all of a sudden an active roster guy. I think he's a very strong practice squad contender, but I don't think that he's going to show up and just be a guy that automatically catapults into the 53.
Didn't they go into last year with Prince Tiga, Nick Allegretti, Darian Kennard, and Gary Christian as their backup offensive linemen? Like, yes. I think I feel better about this year's group than last year's. Like, yeah. I don't know. The offensive line, I'm intrigued to see what it looks like because I do have questions. I just don't know if my questions are a specific position battle going on between them, just because, I think it's Nick Allegretti is your backup, your first interior offensive lineman backup. He's going to be the first guard coming into either side, and he's going to be your first center that you're going to call in if you need a center. It seems like Kennard is kicking into a guard as well in case you need him to step in there. And then, how does the Lucas Niang, Wanye Morris battle shape out? Is it a sides thing, or is there a clear-cut sixth offensive lineman, a tackle that's stepping in no matter what? Like there's stuff there. It's just, I don't even know if it's a position battle for me. So it'll be interesting to monitor.
I think battle's probably not the right word for the offensive line. I'm just very interested to see how the shuffle looks, because we haven't had a good look at Lucas Niang, and he hasn't looked great since he got here. Darian Kennard didn't look great at tackle. Moved inside to guard. What does that mean? Allegretti set in stone, and then you got a rookie left tackle. Just a lot of. I mean, they know the Chiefs know. I don't, and that is more like it's all over the place to me. It just kind of just like guys moving around, and we are going to rely on you, even though we haven't had to rely on you, maybe necessarily the same way we have. It's just a unique little roster construction. Now, to be fair, Austin Ryder probably going to be on the practice squad again like he was last year.
Yeah.
So you're going to have some support right there. Another name I'm keeping an eye on, Jerome Carvin out of Tennessee. I think he's a guy that could, compete. And they've kept around a guy like Mike Caliendo before too. So I
like Caliendo, actually. I liked him in the last year's preseason.
Yeah.
I think he's a little bit of not a sleeper like make the roster or anything, but like I think if I would picking somebody to maybe be an Allegretti going forward, if he does finally get paid next year, he's a guy I do have my eye on. I actually think he's pretty good for that exact kind of role. I don't know if there's a position battle, but do we think there's any drama going on at tight end? Do we think Blake Bell or Jody Fortson are going to get pushed by a Kendall Blanton or a Matt Bushman at all, especially under the concept that people got to take fullback reps, right? Like somebody has to take some fullback reps. You want to tell me that Kendall Blanton, they see him as a very good blocker, somebody that they could probably use on the move a little bit more as a lead blocker? Like I could buy into the concept there. So do we think that there is any kind of competition going on there along the tight end room?
I mean, Matt Bushman is an all-pro waiting to happen. I think we all know that from watching him in camp last year. Shout out Tuck, one of Tuck's favorite dudes. Matt Bushman looked good in camp last year. I'm not going to lie. He did, and he had moments in games, but that's not a guy. I don't look at Matt Bushman. I'm like, he's very clearly deserving of one of the top 4 tight end spots on this team. Now, practice squad, absolutely. Keep him in the holster. But, I don't think that any one of these guys is supplanting one of those top 4 in the current roster construction.
Yeah, I think you might be able to sneak Kendall Blanton on the practice squad. I think that's where he's going to be. And, like, if you break in case of emergency. It'll be interesting. Like everyone's always like, oh, how many guys are going to get plucked? And rarely do guys ever really.
Yeah, they don't.
It's really not that many dudes that are getting plucked from other teams. The Chiefs practice squad could be very salty, like compete with the Raiders salty. Anything.
What did Blake Bell get signed for? Is there no? Do we?
It's like vet signing bonus, I believe. I believe it was a BSB.
I know he was hurt last year.
Signing that NBA contract, I heard on 21.
We didn't get to see a lot, right? Like because he was injured. It's just he's the one guy that I would be considering that would be maybe on the roster bubble for one of these other tight ends, especially if they are leaning to that. He's just the one guy I looked at. I think last year we all talked a lot about how good Blake Bell was to this team and what he could do for it. But then they were fine without him. They were just fine without him running the kind of offense that they were trying to change. So if they wanted to get younger, slightly younger, only by a few years, but younger, maybe get a guy that's just as big, can block just as well. I'm just curious to see if Kendall Blanton has anything, because the Chiefs very clearly wanted him last year. They didn't use him anyway, but they very clearly wanted him, and they got him after the second opportunity to do so, and now he's still here. So I'm intrigued to see what's going on there.
I mean this when I say it.
No.
One of the potential biggest camp battles we haven't talked about, and we haven't talked about it. This is really, it's Shane Buechele versus
Get the
roster
mute button.
selection.
Yeah.
No, it's real. No,
it is real. I want to be with you on this, Maddie, but
no, it's real. Shane Buechele versus roster construction. Okay, so you've got the new rule that you can keep a third quarterback. You can basically make him active without making him active if both of your quarterbacks Brock, get Brock Purdy'd, you can go and just play your third quarterback. I don't know how much that's going to take into consideration, honestly, until it's maybe the playoffs. But I don't know if you can hold on. I don't know if you can hold on to Shane Buechele with some of the difficult decisions that we're talking about here. But again, here's what's so interesting. The Chiefs have actively chosen to keep Shane Buechele twice already in the last 2 seasons. They fought the Cardinals off for him, and then they kept him all last season. That just seems like I don't know if they're just going to cut their losses after keeping him for a year and a half just to guarantee he's here. But man, you talk about wide receiver. Like they might keep Shane Buechele over Justin Ross. That is a real possibility that you need to be prepared for. That Justin Ross is off they keep Shane Buechele over a 7th wide receiver or Richie James. It's real. Go do the math. Go do the math. I'm sure we'll do the math at some point on this show.
Sure.
Go do the math and try to figure it out.
Okay, so yes, you were right. He is going to be directly competing with a 7th or 6th or 10th wide receiver or a 10th offensive line. Like he's going to be competing with the other players that would clearly provide more to the team throughout the year for a roster spot. I 100% agree. We also spend a lot of time talking about how the Chiefs protected him from the Cardinals, how they want him around, how they keep him around, so on and so forth. You know what the Chiefs have also done? Paid Chad Henne $2 million to be the backup quarterback. Paid Blaine Gabbert, it's vet minimum, but still paid Blaine Gabbert to come in and be the backup quarterback. For a team that wants to keep Shane Buechele around and that likes him so much, they're sure intent on paying veterans to be above him on the depth chart.
And yet we said at what point last year? We said the same thing last year. And what happened?
But now Chad Henne was gone. Like you were free and clear to walk away. You did not have to chase Blaine Gabbert. You didn't have to go chase Blaine Gabbert, though. You didn't have to. If you like Shane Buechele, you could have given him the reins to be the backup quarterback. And you know what they said? Nah.
This time last year, we were having the same conversation. And Chad Henne
was an expiring, but he expired. He was a Chief. He can come in and say, hey, I still want to be here. And it's different than saying, oh, we have nobody. Let's go chase down this Tampa Bay free agent quarterback, Blaine Gabbert. It's just different.
He signed a 1-year deal, though. He only signed a 1-year deal last year.
That they don't trust him to be the backup quarterback. They've proven it. They've proven it 2 years in a row.
I don't disagree, but they've also kept him twice. And we literally had the same conversation last year. And
but we talk about that every single time his name comes up, and we never talk about the fact that they're paying everybody they can to start over to be the backup over him.
That's what I'm saying. We had that conversation last year. And that's what's so confusing about the Shane Buechele stuff. That is why it's so perplexing. Because Maddie, you're right. And I agree with you. And I agreed with you last year. And they kept him last year. We said, they made sure that they were going to keep him from the Cardinals last year. There's no way they're going to keep 3 quarterbacks, right? Yep, they did. And that's why it's just I don't know. I don't disagree with him at all.
It is very clear what is happening here. I can tell how hot and bothered you guys are. Shane Buechele is a great hang. That's going to do it for the KC Laboratory. We thank you all for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe. Drop a 5-star for Kent Swanson, Maddie Lane. I'm Craig Stout. Be kind to each other. We'll catch you later.